Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you how to set up a Python 3.7 environment on Windows 10. Again, this should work anytime that you're using a Unix backend. You can follow basically the same steps. And if you've seen my tutorial on how to set up your Windows 10 programming environment, this should work for you, hopefully. I'm in Visual Studio Code here, so I'm just going to pull open the terminal. I'm going to type bash, right? So now we're working within this bash. Does not matter the directory we're in here because we're just going to be installing things. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to update our apt-get listings. So what we'll want to type in is we'll go sudo apt-get update. You're going to be prompted to enter in your password. This is the password you set up for your Unix account. So I'll enter in mine here. And you can see that basically what's happening is all of the sources that need to be updated are being updated here. Now, it is worth noting that before you go through this, you should check to see whether you have a version of Python 3.7 installed already. So if I type Python -v here, you can see that I don't actually have a direct Python installed. And if I type Python 3-v, you can see that under Python 3, I have this Python 3.6.5 installed. And finally, you can see if I go under Python 3.7, I do already actually have this Python 3.7 installed. So I'm going to go sudo apt-get remove Python 3.7. And then I'll do a sudo apt auto remove. This is just going to remove some of the packages that are no longer needed. And the only reason I'm doing this is so that I can fresh install and show you the steps here. So if I go back and I go Python 3.7-v, you can see I no longer have sort of anything installed there, which is perfect. So now you wouldn't have had to run any of this. You should have just run your apt-get update. Hopefully that's done on yours now. And now we can try and actually install it. So the first thing that I'm going to do, or the first thing that I recommend you do, is just try and run sudo apt-get install Python 3.7. If you do this, you should be prompted for a yes to confirm that's going to take up some amount of space. You click yes, you can see it starts to download. Now, this may not work for you. And the reason that this may not work for you is that you might not have the correct, essentially library, the correct destination installed here for it to pull Python 3.7 out of. If you're getting errors here, then I'll put some commands to run in the description that you can try, where essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding a repository that will have Python 3.7 installed in it, and essentially saying that's where we want to take this download from. But hopefully, with the clean install, you should find that this works all right here. And so now actually, because this is finished, I could run Python 3.7, and you can see that I get a Python environment here, right? So I can, print hello, and that's going to work here. So I'll exit out of this, because the issue that we have right now is that by default, pip's not going to be installed, right? So I don't have a pip3 version. I don't have a standard pip version either. So what I'm going to do is I want the Python 3 pip. So I'm going to go sudo apt-get install Python 3-pip. Again, it's going to prompt to see whether or not you want to install this. It needs quite a lot, as you can tell, to install. That's fine. I'm going to click yes. And this is going to start to download here. So we're going to let this download, and hopefully it doesn't take too long. And then we'll come back once this is installed, and I can show you that everything is actually up and running. Okay, so that finished running here. So obviously a lot was needed to be installed. And so you might think that we're sort of done here, But in fact, if I go pip3-v, right, which is what I just installed here, you can see that it's currently running with Python 3.6. Now, again, this may be slightly different depending on exactly how you've installed everything. But essentially what we want to do is get our version for Python 3.7 installed as well. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to run sudo. And just so everyone knows, the reason we call sudo before all of these things is that sort of gives us our elevated permissions. You can think about it as run as administrator in Windows, right? This gives us the ability to sort of access everything on the disk. And especially if you're using the Windows subsystem, very frequently you'll run into issues if you don't use sudo, even though you probably don't need it for these commands. If you're not using it, you may hit issues. And so I find it's typically easier, except for cases where we definitely should not be doing it. But in most situations, I find it easier just to assume that sudo is required. But so the command here that we want to run is sudo python 3.7, which is the way that we're going to call our Python 3.7 scripts. Then we're going to go -m pip install pip. Okay. So we run this, and you can see it's if you didn't have pip correctly installed, then sort of all of this should run. You'll see an installer go here. But now, once that command's been run, we'll have the capacity to install packages for Python 3.7. We'll have the capacity to install packages for any other versions of Python. So if you add Python 3.6, you'll now have pip3 installed there. And with this, everything should be good to go, ready to start programming.